Hey there everybody, it's Mike DiLisio, and today I'm going to be reviewing 1902 Melies from designers Eloy Pujadas and Ferran Renalias and publisher Looping Games. This game is themed around a very famous silent film known as A Trip to the Moon. It was one of the first films that showed off special effects, and it's been very influential over the years. This game is a worker placement game that kind of covers the making of that film. You play as one of the assistants to Melies, and let's head over to the table. I'll show you basically how it works and come back here and let you know what I think. Okay, here we see 1902 Melies, and I'm just going to give you a high-level overview. This is not going to be an exhaustive how to play by any means. Okay, the way the game works is that you are going to be placing your pawns out onto the central board to take action. So it's a worker placement game. What you're trying to do is you're trying to do all three phases of a production of this film, A Trip to the Moon. So you've got a pre-production phase, which is right here, where you're going to be building sets, writing scripts, getting special effects ready. Here is the production area where the filmmaker is actually going to be filming actors in particular places. And here you've got post-production where you're going to be editing, perhaps coloring the film, things along those lines. Every player is going to start with some things in their supply and 3 scenes that are already filmed with their colored ticket on top of it to denote who was responsible for putting it up there. Okay, so as I said, you're going to be placing your pawns onto these different spots, and let me just go through all of the actions really quickly. Pre-production. This is special effects. You can simply draw one of the special effects cards on display, put it in your player area, and then refill. Okay, very simple. If there's ever a time where there's 3 of the same colors showing, you can clear those out. Over here is writing a script. All you're doing there is you're taking one of these scene cards and you're going to be placing them in your play area. All right, so you would just take the card, put it in your play area, and then you would turn over the next card. The last thing here is going to be getting the set ready, preparing the set. The way this works is that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different types of sets, and each scene is going to be filmed on a particular set, which is denoted right here. So if you want to be able to film one of the sets, perhaps that you're getting ready to put up there, you want to get to the right spot. So let's say the purple player actually would have gone there. They want this set. The marker is here. They're going to move it that way. And now if you're in one of the 2 adjacent spots to that marker, you're good to go. Every one of these are going to be adjacent to 2 of them. If you go counterclockwise, that's all that happens. However, if you move it clockwise, what's going to happen is you're going to get one of these stock cards. This is set collection towards the end of the game. You'd have these, you'd keep them face down. Okay, you can never have more than 3, but you can draw more and then discard down. So that's the pre-production area. Here are the spots for the production area, and this is where you're going to be changing wardrobe on your actors, moving your actors around, and then finally filming scenes. And each of these have 2 actions on each spot. You can take them in any order you want. So here, changing wardrobe and moving. So if you look at these actors, they've got a particular type. Here you've got this blue gentleman type, but on the opposite side it tells you on the other side, it's lady. So if you wanted to change the orientation of one of these, you can do that just by simply flipping it over. To move, you can do one of 2 things. You can either move any actor to an empty spot, or you can swap places between 2 actors. Why are you worrying about this? Well, every scene that you are filming is going to have what the orientation that is ideal for that scene is. So in this case, you'd have 3 ladies and then 3 of the creatures that I cannot remember their names. So you're going to try to orient it in that way. You're going to get points when you film something and put it up here with your ticket on it. That's going to be dependent upon how many of these are in the right spot. So it's a maximum of 6 that you can get by doing that action. Okay? Then there are 2 filming actions. You can take a wardrobe change and then a film, or a move and then a film. Either way, you're going to be filming one of the scenes that you have in your player area. So to be able to film a scene, you have to have a couple of things. Let's say that this was still here, and let's say that we'd done a little moving around and we'd flipped this over like this, and somehow I had the orientation something like this when I came to a spot here. Maybe I had moved and I wanted to film. You look to make sure that you've got everything you need to have. Are you filming on the correct set? Yes, I am. Do you have the special effects that is needed? You can either use the one that's on the board, or if that's not the one you need, if you have it in your hand, you would just swap these out, and now that's going to go there. And so once you have those, you'll total up the points you'd get here, and so in this case 3 are in the correct spots and orientation. You'd get those points moving up on this prestige track here, and then you'd place this somewhere up in this area with your ticket on it. Okay? So that is the production, where you're filming, moving actors around, things along those lines. Here is post-production, and there are 3 spots for this. One of them is the only place where you have to place 2 workers there at once. Here is where you're going to be putting together scenes that are already up here and making a sequence. Okay? To do that, you have to be making them in a sequence that is in ascending numbers, and you have to make sure that the adhesive tape on either side is a matching color. So at this point, if I wanted to make a sequence, I could make a sequence by attaching those 2 together because it's the correct sequence there. And at the end of the game, you're going to get scoring for sequences that is basically the length, you can never go beyond 5, multiplied by the number of your tickets in that sequence. So you are incentivized to put together those different scenes. The one that takes 2 workers is basically where you take a sequence that was already created, you divide it, add a new scene in there. It had to make it a better scene, making the numbers more close, but that's the general idea. And then the last spot here is coloring. Each of these scenes that are up there show 2 colors on them, like yellow and blue, blue, blue. You're going to be basically spending these special effects cards as their color, and if you do so, you are going to do the correct ones, you flip it over, it's now a colorized scene. You're going to get 3 points. If you colorize somebody else's scene, they're going to get one of these stock cards. Okay? At the end of the game, you're going to be getting points primarily from the spots up here. You'll also be getting points throughout the game. You have these production journals over here that are going to allow you to get bonuses, boons, and potentially points by taking certain types of actions. So, for example, in this case, if you film using one of these 2 special effects, you can move your marker to the first spot. It'll give you some kind of a boon, and every time you do it, you move up. You could potentially be getting points for that as well. That's the general gist of the game. Whenever a player has played 6 of their tickets, that's going to trigger the end of the game, finish out the round, and total up your points. All right, let's head back and let you know what I think. Okay, well, hopefully that gives you a decent idea on how the game plays. It's primarily a worker placement game, and what you're doing is going through the 3 different phases. You've got the pre-production area, you've got the production area, and then you've got the post-production editing and things along those lines. First thing about that is I do like how it is split into those. I think that this is a game where your appreciation of the theme will have maybe more to do with your enjoyment or not enjoyment of it than typically would be the case. Because I do think that this is a bit of a love letter to filmmaking and to this particular film as well. And it's not Raiders of the Lost Ark, right? Which is a film that basically almost everybody that I know loves that movie. A lot of people have not seen, including me, A Trip to the Moon. I've seen clips of it, but this is something that cinephiles really, I know, hold dear and would probably love seeing something based off of that. So I do like filmmaking as a theme. I think it is underrepresented in board gaming, and I had enough of an appreciation and a curiosity about this particular film that it very much appealed to me before I even played it. And nice touch, in the rule book, they get into some details about the making of the film and things like that. So I do appreciate that. About the gameplay itself. This is, as I've mentioned a couple of times, a worker placement game. However, unlike in most worker placement games, you're not necessarily blocking spots from other players. What ends up happening is if you go to a spot that another player is at, as I showed you in the overview, it bumps them, and that worker gets returned to them. And so what does it matter? What's the threat of having a spot? The idea behind it is that when you have all of your workers out there on the board, then you have to take a full turn to basically pass and retrieve those workers. So if people are consistently bumping you, you can continue to take actions until all of your workers are placed. Now, there is the one action that requires both of your workers, and so that changes things up a bit. I think that the worker placement element of the game works very well. I do, again, like the thematic touches, how, you're taking specific actions to kind of get scenes that you're going to be working on, and then you are going to be filming those scenes using the correct sets. You're going to be getting the correct actors that you need for that particular scene. And then you're going to be putting them into kind of the assembly line where they're going to be getting colorized perhaps or edited, and you can kind of splice things together, and you're trying to keep things in a bit of an order. So I really do like the thematic integration with the mechanisms. Those are all positives. The art, I think, is a positive too. I like the art and the components. Looping games, these series of games that they've made, are all, generally speaking, larger than their box size would imply. They have a bit more going on. And the other thing about it is they take up more table space than you would think from the box. In every one of the looping games I've played, and I have not played all of them, that's the case, where you see this tiny box, but it kind of is sprawling. And this one is, for the ones I've played, that takes up the biggest amount of space because you've got that large film strip at the top that can go very, very wide, depending upon player count. But even at 2 players, it's a pretty wide swath that you have to take up. And you can kind of get away with splitting it into 2, but I mean, it's best to keep it in one long line because then you're seeing the continuity between the color on the ends of the strips, because you're looking to join those together to create a long line of scoring for you when you get those edited pieces in the right order, things along those lines. So a lot of table space. It's a bit of a negative, honestly, because it can be from a usability standpoint, a little less than ideal. But I do like the look of it. I also do like the fact that you kind of feel like you're doing these distinct things, that they're all connected, right? You may be going a bit out of order, but that's how it's going to work in a film too. I mean, you're going to have people editing earlier scenes while ones are still being filmed. So I like that. It does give me a feeling of, it's not a pasted on theme is what I'm getting at. Probably my biggest negative with the game, the thing that gives me pause, is I just got over talking about how everything feels so interconnected. But there's one glaring exception to that, and it does bug me a bit, and that is in the idea of these stocks that you can be getting. Number one, they don't make sense thematically, really. I don't really understand what the connection is between moving from one set to another in a particular direction. That to me felt very gamery. It felt disconnected from a game that is very theme driven, I feel. And also it's tied into set collection. So to me, it felt like this was a bit bolted on. We have to have something else. Let's make it a set collection thing. Okay, but you're taking me out of the thematic integration that has been pretty strong throughout the game. And also, there can be some issues with the swinginess of those cards and the luck, because you're basically top decking these cards. And there are 3 different types of cards, and based upon, you can never have more than 3 at a time, but what you're essentially trying to do is get the highest value of those based upon the number of the same types of cards you have. Well, you have no real influence over that. You're just drawing a card. And if you have 3 cards and you're hoping to get that 3rd card you need, you can just keep moving clockwise to try to get a new card. And that could be a pretty big swing. It can be a 9-point, 18-point swing, I suppose, if one player gets 9 points, another player gets none. So that bothers me. That bothers me quite a bit. It does not take this from a game I would not, it doesn't take it from a game I do recommend to a game I wouldn't recommend. I'm going to be giving this game an 8 out of 10. I'm going to tell you, I think I would have given this an excellent score if not for those stocks. I really do feel like that takes it from being an exceptional game to a very good game. Especially if you like the theme. If you like movie making, if you like silent films, I mean, that's a no-brainer. There's a good solid game in here. And unlike many of the looping games, actually all of the looping games that I've played, it feels pretty smooth and seamless while playing. I've liked other games by this publisher, but I've always felt that there was something clunky about them. The rules were kind of a little bit ambiguous. I didn't have those issues with this game. I felt like, oh, I get it. After reading the rules once, I was like, yeah, I understand what's happening here. Didn't have to refer back to the book a lot. That has not been my experience with many of their other games. So, in many ways, this is an excellent game that is taken back a bit by one particular mechanism that I feel like is out of place and puts it into what I would say is a very good game, an 8 out of 10. All right, well, that's going to do it for me. This is Mike DiLisio signing off from the Dice Tower Midwest Annex.